Hey guys, Elvin Prince here, and bit of an outfit change if you can't tell. We're gonna be starting a new series that I've teased for a bit, and by teased I mean I meant to record it right after Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Check that out, link in the description. I've been enjoying it, but we're doing a fight scene analysis of a bunch of the fights in RWBYs. This will range from me commenting on weapon designs, whether I'm willing to give weapons a certain rule of cool pass, or if I just am not a fan of them outright. Gonna probably try and explain a bit of how I would personally change them. This is gonna be significantly lower budget than what everyone else who's done this and I've watched has done, like Skolagrim, Doctor Hope, even Judgmental Critter, all of which have great videos, not on RWBY in particular, just fight scenes in general, also Shadversity. But I'm quite literally recording this, if you couldn't tell, on a ancient laptop that burns me in a corner of a living room. So, yeah. But anyway, gonna be doing weapons, fights, and just general things with that. For my general qualifications, I've been doing a bit of, wouldn't call it HEMA, but basically I'm the guy who, you'd occasionally see in a park, her fighting with weapons in a larger group. Nothing that interesting. I've been practicing American freestyle taekwondo for about 3 years. I got my black belt a while back, and I've been off and on practicing. And I'm also trying to study Glima, so yeah. If you have any more in depth insights, please let me know. I'd love to discuss and hear. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into this. Currently doing the Red trailer, what started it all for RWBY, and what's going to be starting it for me. Again, just don't think I've ever mentioned it really, but some of the best parts in the volumes are the music. And Casey Lee Williams' amazing singing. Let's skip a bit. And I think this is where we're truly starting. Setup shot, generic monster horde, and this is just, I understand this is basically not a pilot, but animation test, really, a proof of concept. But it's something I've seen a lot in RWBY. It's just a blank void with a bit of ground for the characters to stand on. Not really much in terms of environment interaction and tactics being used from that. A lot of the fight scenes are still really good, but the ones that, really get your eye, like the RWBY Nevermore fight in episode 8, I believe, as well as, that has the use of terrain in different altitude changes. Instead of just going along basically the X axis, it's going X, Y, and Z all directions are being used. And speed semblance. And uh, weapon. Okay, crescent rose should be on the screen somewhere, but it's I personally am not a fan of large transformy weapons. It's something I've ran into consistently when designing my own Ruby OCs. The weapons are always a bit more streamlined and less. Let's just drop the speed on this. They're significantly less flashy and not as many transformative elements. I mean, overall, the weapon design is stylized, and in terms of actual whole guns, it's not that bad. Guns aren't exactly my, or firearms aren't exactly my specialty. I tend to deal with more swords, and this is the impact moment in almost all the reactions. Everybody just is like, oh my god, what did I just see? And honestly, okay. Scythe form of crescent rose. This is where my general problems with crescent rose as a weapon come in. Okay, love what Monty or yeah, love what Monty did with the use of recoil in the fighting style. Ruby is short. I think she's only like what 5'11", and with that, naturally the gun is gonna buffer her around a fair bit, just because she's short, small, very thinly built. She's petite. And crescent rose. A scythe. Okay. Scythes have been used in battles. There's even some treatises about how to use scythes. But that is mainly for your more unarmored, or not unarmored, lightly armored, Joe Schmo. Hey, the king or baron or whatever has called us to war. Grab whatever bladed or potentially lethal weapons you have and go kick the ass of whoever it is that we've been told to do. And with it, again, insert my comments about transforming weapons. Now, war scythes are actually a thing. But with it, the blade is not out at they're not out at like a 90-degree angle. They're out like 115 or whatever. It's extended so you don't have to constantly pull to do damage. You can just cut, as opposed to, like I said, having to pull and twist, sort of. It can be used as a weapon, but not nearly as effective as one normally could if it was a modified scythe. I think later in the trailer it does show it in as a war scythe, being having the blade be raised a bit. And honestly, if it were kept like that, I think it could greatly improve things to a degree. Though that is just me being a slight being slightly pedantic. Though, as possible use of a tripod, could it work? I mean, maybe there's got to be some sort of compensator going on in there. And for it, everything looks like it could, in theory, fit just fine. And then just small thing, it easily could have just clawed her throat out or bit. It's been shown that while the Grim are animalistic and aggressive, they aren't stu- actually no, it's been shown that they're stupid, but it easily could have just slashed her throat, and the silver eyes, which have caused so much strife. Again, use of momentum just with it, it moving everything. I love it. And actually, would that have properly cut? It wouldn't have. I don't think it could have made a clean cut just with the positioning, because it was right in the crook of the scythe, which isn't bladed. So for it to properly make a cut, let's get to where we can see it. Uh, if you can't tell, gonna be screwing around with play speed a whole bunch. Yeah, it gets cut in the what looks like the dead space of it, just where the folding takes place. But animation, this is mainly meant as a, at least the way I view it, this show is mainly meant as a turn your brain off and watch the fights, or at least the earlier volumes. The later ones, you get a bit more plot heavy, and some of which those are actually good. And the spear point at the end of the scythe. I don't think we've ever seen RWBY actually use a spear point for anything other than dramatic pose, planting of weapon. You're wrong. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of is the mech fight with Cordovin way out in volume 6. And the stylistic choice of having them. Okay, random tangent. Something that I think could be cool. You know how everybody's auras has a different, basically, color and, I don't want to say texture, but that sounds the most right to me. It's got a different color and pattern, kind of. As if when a Grim was killed, because the weapons are whatever, they're like a conduit for their aura, or whatever Pyrrha said. If they had the same effect as they had, like in the trailer, just like if RWBY killed one, it would dissolve into rose petals. If Yang killed one, it'd be a yellow fire. Weiss, like a frost consuming it, and Blake, it just fading into shadows. Not like it does with the smoke, but just like melting into the ground. And the tripod. Okay, is that artillery piece? So that's what? Rack, close, pull, rack, close, pull. If you can't tell, I'm just running through the motions of that. I think I saw somewhere that RWBY is, or at least was, not sure if it was changed, left-handed. So with that, it could just be a positioning thing. Though I would think during your or questionable. Okay. The show also has an extreme case of the twirlies. You know, just spinning weapons, spinning yourself. Just generally, unlike what Anakin will tell you, spinning is not a good trick. At least 9 times out of 10. You will find times where it's like, oh, spinning works. Take, for example, the Butcher of Blaviken fight in the first episode of The Witcher. Absolutely love the show, by the way. Looking forward to season 2, and I will be reacting to that, as along with Nightmare of the Wolf, whenever I get the chance. Should be within the next few weeks. But with it, it's you don't just spin for the sake of it. When he spins, if I remember correctly, he more or less blocks it and shunts the sword away. If you put the clip here, you can probably see it better. And then here we are, just the weird reloading and the questionable power use of reload. And okay. Case of the twirlies. Are these legitimately useful twirlies or just twirlies for dramatic flair? So, jump. That makes sense because of recoil. You can't avoid that too much. Lands. God, your knees are gonna hurt after that. Okay, was that with the butt of the scythe or the blade? Okay, so the butt. I'd say that was a legitimate use of the twirls. Or twirlies. And you heard the gun. Or, sorry, you heard the rifle discharge several shots during that. Again, going with the thing of using momentum, and I'm not going to be counting shots with this. I don't think it's worth it. And with that, that's gotta take some impressive strength. The amount of weight just holding it out and then having to pull back even with the recoil. Well, it's just controlling it. That. Cool. We found one of our first bad twirlies. It easily could have just torn her back open. And with that strike, double kill. I can't do the voice. Gymnastics, again. Use of recoil, love it. And the mindless horde continues. Okay, one thing with the way the scythe is hooked, it's used, a scythe is used to cut wheat or whatever to harvest it, which is why it's hooked. So, it can catch and pull as much as you can. Whereas with a war scythe, it's out so you can just cut without hooking. Those strikes wouldn't have cut because it would have just gone down. Maybe it would have gotten a sort of draw cut, or would it be a draw cut? But basically, the blade gonna be using a flesh colored pencil. Basically, it would just do a nick as opposed to the cleave, which would have been achieved with a sort of glaive or hewing spear or war scythe. And the horde is here. Reload to, I think that's a gravity dust thing. And war scythe. Come on. React, please. Okay. Don't know why it took so long for the computer to respond there. But, just running war scythe. I have a feeling that with this mode, if you remove the flange at the end of the thing, it could be so much more effective. Maybe a bit less cool looking. And I'm not going to be looking at this in terms of, okay, does the coolness, that'll be a bit later. But with this, it could be so much more dangerous. Just with the blade extended in a war scythe, you could just cut in and do it that way, as opposed to, having to hook and pull everything. And spinning general disarray and mayhem as a proof, and the classic pose. So overall, it's a good fight. The animation has definitely showed its time. Again, being animated by just Monty Ohm, I believe. I don't think there was anyone else, and this was more of a proof of concept than anything else. It's not a bad fight. RWBY does have a severe case of the twirlies, but with the way her blade is positioned, I don't think it's that atrocious. Okay, and the hook on the inside of that, why is that there? I don't think we've ever seen RWBY hook somebody with the scythe, or at least the butt end of the scythe, though it does add a bit more balance in terms of weapon aesthetics. So overall, this fight, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It's a decent fight, and overall, not a bad time. So if you enjoyed, like, there'll be a playlist eventually down in the description. If you want, I can try and branch out into other fights. I'm not going to be as large of an authority that you can trust as, like, the guys I mentioned earlier. Why am I spacing on the names? Skulligrim, Shadversity, those guys. But all in all, if you enjoyed, like, subscribe for more. And until next time, this is Elvin Prince, signing out.